Bhadram karnevi shrunuyama devaha Bhadram pasyemakshbhiryajatraha Sthirairangayestushtvagam sastanubhi Yasema deva hitai yadayuhu. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies the life allotted to us. The subject this morning is Swami Turiyananda, who was one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna and a man of extremely unusual characteristics. He was the soul of austerity. I mean, if something had to be done, and no matter what austerities were required in order to accomplish it, this is the type of person that he was. He was very traditional, ancient Indian methods of spiritual practice and to achieve spiritual realization. He was a monk in the very traditional style as far as his own life was concerned. But as far as his role in spreading spiritual knowledge and spiritual inspiration, he was very modern and very up to date. So he was a very, very interesting, very inspiring, very all-inclusive representative of the best in the Indian spiritual tradition. He was not the sort of person who would normally be expected to come to the West. All of his previous life was summed up in the ancient traditions of monks going out from their ordinary standard of living and depending entirely on God, depending entirely on their spiritual ideal, totally focused, totally concentrated on the basic realities that have been discovered by the ancient sages. In that sense, Swami Turiyananda was very traditional, and yet he agreed to come to this country at the request of Swami Vivekananda. He is not the type of person who would be expected to do that. But under the influence of Sri Ramakrishna, who was extremely traditional and extremely modern in so many different ways, he agreed to come here, and he agreed to actually lead the work here in San Francisco. Basically on the West Coast, this was the only center in those days for the teaching of Vedanta. But he did not achieve that easily. He was thoroughly traditional in his approach to spiritual practice and to spiritual life. Certain things I will mention in regard to him. He was born in a traditional family and underwent, his mindset and his approach to spirituality and were very traditional. And so even when he adapted his life to the modern style, he never let go of that traditional idea. And what is the essence of the traditional idea? This is what we're supposed to be teaching in this center. And that comes in the Upanishads. The Vedanta, the word Vedanta itself, means the Veda Anta, the end, the concluding portions of the Vedas, which are the Upanishads. The Upanishads contain the basic spiritual teachings. Other sections of the Vedas contain advice in so many different ways, contain rituals that can be performed and that were traditionally performed for thousands of years. But the concluding section of the Vedas is what we call the Upanishads. And at that point, the spiritual tradition alone was being emphasized. And what is at the heart of the spiritual tradition? Sarvam khalu idam brahma. If you want to put it in one verse or one phrase, that would be one of the ways of doing it. Sarvam, all, khalu, indeed, idam, this. All this indeed is what? What is all this? We have so many ideas of what this is, what this life is, what our purpose in existence is, what methods we should follow in order to achieve that purpose. So many different interpretations and advice exist. But the basic statement that is made to summarize the Vedantic ideal is Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. All of this indeed is what? Is Brahman. All right, so then you have to define what is this Brahman? And how is that explained? How is that described? One of the ways that it has been told about how to do this, that we are not the physical body. What is it that we experience? We experience this physical universe, and we act in this physical universe. We have roles to play, and we fulfill these roles, and we consider this to be the essence of life. But according to the spiritual teachings, the essence of life is not just to do what has to be done, but to understand what the reality is. What is this thing that we're dealing with? What is this life? Of course, the ancient idea is that this life is one phase. At the end of this life, we don't just disappear. That doesn't make any sense in any respect, that at the end of life, this is just the end of it. We have done so many things, we have performed so many actions, we have so many desires, so many plans, so much has been done in an average lifetime. And suddenly it should simply stop. It disappears into nothing. Even the conservation of energy in a physical sense would prevent that from being true. So the ancient idea is this is not the end, this is not a period, a full stop, this is a comma, or at most a semicolon. And it begins again. That, even from considerations of the conservation of energy, makes sense, that we should spend our life struggling hard for so many things, and suddenly, at one moment, at one stroke, the heart stops, and we're gone. And this energy, this rushing train of our life simply vanishes into thin air. That doesn't make any sense, even on the basic worldly or scientific level. So the idea has been there since immemorial days that this is one scenario that we undergo at this time. When this ceases, there is an interval, and then another scenario begins. This is called the idea of reincarnation. Why is it that we reincarnate? Because we haven't finished what we needed to do. As long as there is desire, there has to be something to carry on that desire, something to continue that struggle. That our life should simply come to an end without any further manifestation doesn't make any sense, either from a spiritual or from a physical or even from a scientific sense. So what is it that these ancient lawgivers have maintained? On the basis of their own experiences, on the basis of the experience of other souls, other people who have followed this trend of thought and this trend of experiences, our life goes on. In other words, when we pass away with so many desires, so many unfulfilled things that we have been struggling for. And another life comes. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's what one could say would be expected to be the logical conclusion, that this is not at the end. It is true the body dies, but there's no evidence that the mind also dies. We are certainly associated with the body, we're also associated with the mind, and we are associated with a third entity, which is not always recognized. That in addition to the body and the mind, there is something within us which is neither the body and the mind or the mind, and which is not subject to the laws of the physical laws or the psychological laws. There is something in us which is eternal. All religions recognize that aspect to some extent, more or less. The idea that there is something that goes on. You can call it the soul, you give it any name you like. But it is the experience of thousands of years in this Indian spiritual tradition, which includes Buddhism also, not only Hinduism. And it also, in a sense, includes Christianity, because the Christian or the Jewish ideal is not, when this life is over, everything is finished. It's not considered a reincarnation, it's not thought in that way, but life continues with God or within God's ambience. Some way there is a continuation. Nobody really feels that when this life ends for some reason, that is the end of everything for us. Now, this idea was firmly believed in India, and the means of realizing that within us which survives death has been the concern of the ages, of the millennia. I am not this body, I am not this mind. I have a body and I have a mind temporarily, but I am not that. I am something else. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Okay, then you have to explain what Brahman is. But at least you can start with this idea. We are not the body and we're not the mind. The body has come and the body will go. The mind sometimes is very active, sometimes it's totally, essentially unconscious. But yet, something survives, something reinvigorates, something remanifests. So we're not the mind. Then the question is, what are we? We are spirit. This is the word Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, is one of the ancient Mahavakyas, great statements. I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma, my consciousness, prajnana, this consciousness of mine is a manifestation of that Supreme Spirit. Tat Tvamasi, you are that. What is the that which you are? That's our homework, to find out what that is. But the whole point of the matter is we are not just this physical body. We are an entity of reality that has a physical body. But we are not that. We are something else. It's called the Spirit, it's called the Atman, it's called Brahman. So many different names are given. The soul, so many different descriptions are there. But that is the essence of monasticism. And that is the essence of what Swami Turiyananda, who is the great soul that we're emphasizing this morning, that is what was central to their idea. This body is something that we occupy for a certain length of time, and according to the ideas of reincarnation, with this body goes after some interval, another physical entity manifests and we go on with this. The things that we did not achieve in the previous lifetime are left for us to try to achieve in the future. Now, this type of idea, this conception was, or has always been, what motivates the monastic tendency. And Swami Turiyananda was the very embodiment of that. Once he was swimming in the Ganga, in the Ganges, and of course the Ganges is a tropical river. There are all sorts of beings in that river that may not necessarily be considered very healthy. So if you see one of these, you see a crocodile, your natural tendency is to try to get out of the water or get away from that area. So he found himself subject to that. He found that someone was calling out, "There's a crocodile, beware." And he started to rush out of the water. And then he said to himself, "What am I doing? I repeat day and night that I am that infinite reality. I am the spirit. I am not just this body or this mind. I am that which is eternal, which cannot be affected by anything. And as soon as there is the slightest hint of danger, I rush out trying to save what I think is myself. Whereas the real self that I constantly try to think about, talk about, that real self is eternal. It has never come into existence. It can never vanish. So what is this that I am afraid of?" So then he went back into the water and calmly finished his bath. Now you say that's maybe going a little far, and one can agree with that, but the principle is what we're discussing. The principle of Vedanta is, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am that which is. There's an interesting story from the Bible, and it is the event. I think it was Moses who was asked, who was leading some cattle or some sheep to graze, and he saw a bush that was burning. The bush was burning, but it was not being consumed. So he thought that's a very unusual situation. So he went closer, and he heard a voice coming from the bush. And so he asked that voice, "Who are you?" That was biblically it's interpreted, of course, to be the voice of God. So Moses asked, "Who are you? Who is this that's talking to me from this burning bush, that's a bush that's burning but is not being consumed?" And he heard the voice say, "I am that I am." And I think one of the great exemplars of Vedanta, I think Ramana Maharshi thought that this was the Mahavakya, the great saying of the Bible. Mahavakya means the four statements that are generally illustrated as being the essence of Vedanta, the essence of the spiritual tradition. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, Tattvamasi, thou art that, Pragyanam Brahma, that consciousness is Brahman. I am Atma Brahman, this self, this reality, the thing that I understand to be myself, the reality of that is Brahman. What is Brahman? That which is Sat Chid Ananda. It is existence. It can never disappear. It is that which is. Existence can never become non-existence. In that sense, I am that existence. I am that consciousness, that pragyanam, that understanding, that basic sense of individuality. So this is the the statements, there are 4 statements like that that are considered the essence of Vedanta, and they are traditionally either chanted or repeated in various circumstances. And so Swami Turiyananda said to himself, I say that I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am pure spirit, infinite and eternal. And then when this crocodile comes along, I associate myself with the body, and I think if the crocodile kills me, then I am dead. No. So he went back into the water. And of course you could say, well, it's lucky that the crocodile managed to swim away. But nevertheless, that is the point, that if one believes these fundamental realities, this fundamental teaching, then one feels the obligation to put that into practice under all circumstances. And this Swami Turiyananda certainly did that. The word Turiya is very interesting in itself. There is we are familiar with the waking state, we're familiar with the dream state, and also the state of deep sleep. Waking state we understand, dream state we also understand. We don't really understand what the state of deep sleep is. But it is a state that we enter every day, or at least we try to enter every day. It is a state which is we're not awake and we're not dreaming, but we're not non-existent either. We are something at that time. And the way it's generally phrased is, we enter a realm which is very close to the essential spiritual reality that we are. It is a realm in which we don't see anything, where none of our senses is active. We don't think, the mind is not active. But there is a reality within us which continues. So if we want to find out what is this thing within us, which is neither the body nor the mind, but which we call the spirit, the closest we come to that, it's not really that, but it is the state in which certain disturbances have been removed and we are utterly unaware of any multiplicity, but we do exist. So the idea of spiritual practice is to attain that which continues to exist even when the body and the mind are no longer functioning. What is this thing that transmigrates from one life to the next life? In that transmigration, the Bhagavad Gita explains and describes. So it isn't that each time that when we appear in this world, we appear, as they say, tabula rasa, meaning that like a slate that has been wiped clean. So when the child is born in this world, it is not that he is born with nothing and he has to slowly acquire all these things. It's true, he slowly acquires a lot of things, but he adds them to the mixture that he already has in his mind from previous incarnations. So when the Swami was bathing in the river, when someone told him about the crocodile, he felt, no, I should not go away from that. I should not be affected by that, because that which is the essence of myself is not affected by this phenomenon. Now, the Swami Turiyananda came to this country with Swami Vivekananda on his second trip to the West. And they stopped in England for a brief while, and then they continued to the United States. Swami Turiyananda taught. Swami Vivekananda asked him to teach a spiritual knowledge and spiritual tradition in the New York, New Jersey area. And then Swami Vivekananda left for California, and Southern California in the fall and winter of 1899, and then in the spring in February of 1900, he came to San Francisco. And eventually on April 14th, 1900, very holy day. What is that holy day? Swami Vivekananda founded the Vedanta Society of San Francisco. And when he went back, he felt that he should go back to India. And when he left San Francisco, he said, I will send you someone, a great monk, who lives what I simply taught. I will send you Swami Turiyananda. So when he got back to New York, he told Swami Turiyananda, who had been teaching in some of the towns around New York, New Jersey, he told him, the Divine Mother wants you to go to California and establish the Vedanta Society in San Francisco. Swami Turiyananda said, brother, why don't you just say that you want me to go to San Francisco? Surely you have not heard the Divine Mother's words in this matter. Swami Vivekananda was not a person to be so casual. He said, no, brother, when your mind becomes a little pure, you also will be able to hear the Divine Mother and hear her commands. Anyway, whatever that may be, the result was Swami Turiyananda came to San Francisco, and his first job, his first direction was to establish the Shanti Ashrama, which is in the San Antone Valley, just about an hour from San Jose, about 2 hours from San Francisco. And he lived in that valley. Swami Vivekananda told him to live the truth that I simply taught. Meaning he had taught all these things in lectures and classes. Now he was sending someone who could actually practice those in daily life. So he said, I'm sending you Swami Turiyananda. And so Swami Turiyananda came here, and within, I think, less than a week, or maybe at most 10 days, the people of the Vedanta Society that he had formed in San Francisco were fully enthusiastic and ready to move to establish that ashrama near San Jose, what is now the Shanti Ashrama. And so until 1902, Swami Turiyananda divided his time between San Francisco and the Shanti Ashrama. He also went to Los Angeles on occasion. So he was spreading the philosophy and teachings of Vedanta all over Northern California. But then there were certain difficulties he also, and he wanted to go back to consult Swami Vivekananda on the details of how to carry on this work. So he decided to leave. He had been living both in San Francisco and Shanti Ashrama at different times. When he was ready to leave Shanti Ashrama for the last time, he had a vision, a spiritual experience. He had a vision of the Divine Mother herself, and she asked him to stay, not to go away, not to go back to India, to stay. And he said, "No, Mother, I want to consult Swami Vivekananda. Let me go." So he left. Of course, the mother had shown him, at least this is the tradition that we have, that Swami Turiyananda had been shown pictures of how magnificent that Shanti Ashrama would be if he stayed. But he said, "No, Mother, allow me to consult Swami Vivekananda, and then we can decide." Anyway, it is said that when the vision of the mother ended, she disappeared with a very serious expression. So whatever the case may be, Shanti Ashrama did not become a great preaching and practice center, but it is still today considered our primal holy place, and once a year, at least in April, we have a pilgrimage there to remember the great souls who came to stay. Several disciples of Sri Ramakrishna came. Swami Trigunatita used to spend 1 month every year with me, quite a few disciples, living at Shanti Ashrama and practicing meditation and spiritual disciplines. So it did fulfill a role, and once a year we go there, even today, and even at this time. But that glorious future that could have happened, or at least was supposed to have happened, did not happen in that way in Shanti Ashrama, but it happened in a way in San Francisco. Our old temple was established, and the new temple was established. Now, the establishment of the new temple had the blessing of Swami Shivananda. So everything is continuing, but it's not exactly continuing in the way that perhaps it could have if Swami Turiyananda had stayed. But the type of life that he lived is something that we are still very much inspired by. Just to read his life is a great education. He really put into practice this idea: I am not this body, I am not this mind. I have a body and I have a mind, but basically that is not my inner reality. I am spirit, I am that which is eternal, I am that which is unchanging. First of all, normally in our life we don't even know that such a thing exists. We may say, yes, God exists, and God is eternal. But our role in that is not at all understood. The point is that what Vedanta emphasizes, and what the Swami practiced and lived his entire life, was that the inner reality in each one of us has never come into existence. It always was. And because it has never come into existence, it can never decay, it can never disappear. I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am pure spirit. I am that. Within me is that which is eternal and infinite, which has never come into existence because it always existed, and therefore it can never end. That is what Vedanta is trying to emphasize in so many different ways. And to make that practical in our daily life, so many things are undertaken and so many things are done. But the Swami Turiyananda's life emphasizes that this should not be just something that we say, but something that we don't live. We should live that in every aspect of our life. There is within me something, a reality, the Atman, Brahman, that is eternal. I am conscious of this world and things are changing. I'm conscious of that which changes. But at the heart of everything that changes, there is something which never changes, which has never come into existence and can therefore never be destroyed. It is the very essence of that which is eternal. That is at the heart of everything that changes. That is at the heart of every one of us. So that understanding has to clarify, has to underlie all of our actions. You may say that Swami Turiyananda bathing in the Ganga and wanting to escape a crocodile that was said to be there, that we shouldn't, that should be considered very natural, but he understood it in a different way. I say I am not this body and I'm not this mind, but when the body is endangered by something, I immediately act as though I feel that this body is something that comes and goes. So the thing is that I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am pure spirit. That was the essence. That in a sense is the essence that Vedanta tries to teach. And he wanted to be 100%, his actions should be 100% according to this basic idea. So the thought of going out of the water because there was something that was danger to the body, that he felt was improper. Now, of course, when if we are bathing, if we see a crocodile, we're certainly going to try to get away from it. But he was trying to live, in fact, what he preached in principle. And that itself is something that we have to learn to do. So this society has been blessed, this Vedanta society has been blessed by being founded by Swami Vivekananda and having been led for several years by such a great soul as Swami Turiyananda, who actually experienced what we normally only preach about, and followed by Swami Trigunatita, another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, who put into practice in all his teachings all these very basic ideals. So once on their birthdays, on the times when these great souls were born, we try to remember these things, and we try to understand that we have to live this. Just to study Vedanta in books is not enough. We have to live that life. We have to practice what we preach. That is not always easy, but this is what we should be concentrating on. If I'm not this body, if I'm not this mind, if I'm pure spirit, if I'm eternal, and unending. If there is in me something which was never created and can never be destroyed, I should act that way. That should be reflected in my daily behavior. This is something that I should remember. It's not just a theory that I can offer obeisance to, but not include in my daily life. So this puts an obligation on all of us to try at least to live what we preach. Thank you.
তো নয় মা কালী, মা কালী, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না, কালো তো নয় মা কালী, মা কালী, তরুণ তপন যিনি বরণ, বলমা কোথা লুকালি, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না, দাও মা মোহের আবরণ খুলি, নয়নেতে দে মা জ্ঞান তুলি বলি, দাও মা মোহের আবরণ খুলি, নয়নেতে দে মা জ্ঞান তুলি বলি, রাঙা রূপের দুটি বাহু তুলি, বদনেতে বলি, মা জয় কালী, জয় কালী, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না, কালো তো নয় মা কালী, মা কালী, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না, কাঁদিয়ে কুমার যখনই যাচায় মায়ের কৃপায়, তখনই তা পায়, কাঁদিয়ে কুমার যখনই যাচায় মায়ের কৃপায়, তখনই তা পায়, দিনরাম তাই লুটাইছে পায়, আশায় বঞ্চনা করুণা কঙ্কালী, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না, কালো তো নয় মা কালী, মা কালী, তরুণ তপন যিনি বরণ, বলমা কোথা লুকালি, রক্ত বরণা ও মা ত্রিনয়না।
The subject for next Sunday is Sri Sarada Devi, a builder of bridges. This talk will be given by Pravrajika Amaraprana. Child care is provided during our Sunday lectures. On Sunday evenings, Swami Tattvamayana holds an online class at 6 p.m. on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy. The Zoom and YouTube links are available on our website's homepage as well as in the monthly email bulletin. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. in this auditorium. On Friday evenings, Swami Tattvamayana holds a scripture class at the Old Temple at 7:30 p.m. Please use the auditorium entrance on Filbert Street. The current text for study is the Bhagavad Gita. The class is also streamed on YouTube and Facebook. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of our services. After the lecture, there will be a question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall, and all are welcome. Om Dhyauhu Shantihi Antariksham Shantihi Prithivi Shantihi Apo Shantiroshadaya Shantihi Vanaspataya Shantihi Vishwe Deva Shantihi Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven. Peace is in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite, universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us all.